Thank you for staying with us. You're still watching The Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. Right now, it's time to look at our first hot topic, and it says Nigeria's inflation rate drops to 23.18% in February 2025. Nigeria's headline inflation rate is to 23.18% in 2025 of February, down from 24.48% in January, according to the latest report from the National Bureau of Statistics, NBS. This represents a 1.30 decrease, signaling moderate price pressures expected to continue in the coming months. On a year-on-year basis, inflation declined significantly from 31.70% recorded in February 2024. Urban inflation stood at 25.15% year-on-year, while rural inflation dropped to 19.89%, both showing notable decreases compared to the previous year. Month-on-month, urban inflation was 2.40%, while rural inflation was 1.16%. The 12-month average consumer price index CPI for February was 30.09%, slightly higher than the 26.18% recorded in 2024. Food inflation also saw a sharp decline, standing at 23.51% year-on-year, a 14.41% drop from 37.92% in February 2024. Month-on-month, food inflation was 1.67%, with a reduction attributed to base year adjustments and lower prices of key staples like yam tubers, potatoes, maize, flour, and cassava. Joining us this morning is Gbolahan Olojede. He's a finance expert to discuss this. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, good morning. Nice to be here.
All right, so last month we saw a slight decline in the inflation, and this is the second month in a row that we've seen this as well. Is it something to celebrate, or is something that we probably just see on paper? Because at the end of the day, most times when people go to the market, they say that the prices remain the same, and every day prices of goods and services are increasing, but on paper we're seeing a decline here. So is this a turning point for Nigeria's economy, and is it something we should celebrate or not?
First, before we talk about either celebrating or being anxious about it, the first thing is to understand it. So the decline that we are talking about, in the headline inflation, occurred by virtue of comparing this year with last year. So what you call the year-on-year numbers. Last year, the basis for computing the inflation figure was different from two dimensions. Number one, the basis year was different. Number two, the weight of the various items in the inflation bucket was different. So it is declining because of that adjustment. That is what we have seen. So if we want to monitor closely, we should probably better look at what is going on a month-on-month basis. So the figures will always also talk about month-on-month inflation. On the month-on-month inflation that you will see in this report, there is actually an increase. But when you compare year-on-year, so you're taking February and comparing it with February of last year, and the basis for arriving at the numbers in February of last year is different from the basis for arriving at the numbers we are seeing in February this year, then you have that decline that we're talking about because of the change in basis. But in the real sense, it is not yet Uhuru, and there are even more challenging months ahead in terms of some of the items. As we go into the planting season, for example, prices of food items tend to increase. Corn, maize, yam, all the prices will tend to start increasing as we go into the planting season. And that will exert some inflationary pressure. But I think we are getting some deflation maybe from fuel prices. It seems as if we've gone up from that 1,000 bracket and I saw almost everywhere I went over the weekend, I saw 800 and something naira for a liter of fuel, back from the 1,000 that we've seen sometimes in the past. So there are certain pressures that are reducing, while we are likely to see increased pressure from the food side of things as we go into planting. So there is nothing yet to rejoice, rather to focus on what is going on in that space and see how we can continue to help prices to moderate.
How can we do that? There is a thin line between dictating for people who are doing their businesses and also monitoring that the right things are being done. I'll give you an example why I'm worried about how we can bring this down. If the government brings a policy, for instance, CNG that we've been talking about, and then the people have better rates for what is fueling their cars. Or now there is what we are calling price war in the petrol world, and we are supposed to be benefiting. But we are not seeing that in transportation cost, except for private users of vehicles. They are the ones that are gaining. But the public transportation, which is responsible for the movement of goods from place to place, which also will impact on the prices of these goods, there is no reduction. So how do we make sure that we can bring down this inflation when the people that are involved in the system are not making it easy? Is there a role the government has to play? Is there something that needs to be done before we can get to where we want to get to?
Okay, two things come to mind. Number one is relating, engaging with the associations that are involved. I remember an incident. I bought some gari from somewhere in Abeokuta some time ago, and then I asked someone who helped me to get it there to say, look, go to that same place. I love the gari. Please help me to get it again. And he said the people could not get cassava. I said, well, how could cassava have disappeared? Here is what actually happened in that particular instance. The cassava people, of course, wanted to sell their cassava, but they have an association of, who said, look, you cannot sell that cassava at that price you want to sell it to. Rather, if you're sure that you want to sell it at that price, we will be the one to buy. So they went there, they mopped up the cassava so that they could sell it at a higher price than what the original producers wanted to sell. So the implication of that is that there are associations at every level, including transportation. Government will take steps to have certain level of engagement with these people to ensure that they behave the right way. Lowering of prices in the market normally will lag behind the drop in the causative factor. So if fuel is what is causing prices to rise for transportation, when fuel price drops, transportation price will not drop immediately. There's a lag between those two things, and that presents that opportunity for engagement. Say, look, these prices have come down. Can you do something about it? The alternative is for government in itself to come and compete in those spaces, or to incentivize certain producers to compete in that space. So if transportation is generally expensive, let's use Lagos as an example, then government should provide more BRT buses all over the place, or work in conjunction with private sector to flood the market with more supply of that particular product. When people begin to abandon the expensive one and move into the better priced one, the prices will automatically adjust. In certain parts of the world, what happens with agricultural product is that government typically will intervene when there is a harvest and there is a glut, and government will mop up and keep it. And if for whatever reason in the season when products are out of season, the prices go beyond certain level, government will start to release from that which it has stockpiled to moderate the prices to the level where it wants it to be. So intervening in the supply side of things, engaging with associations who could influence the behaviors of their members are two things that government can think about with respect to helping to moderate prices.
So now, what do you foresee in the next coming months? Because, like I said, this has been in January. A month-on-month basis, we've seen the decline about 1.30%. So this has been in January, February, and the next coming months. I know you've also mentioned the planting season, but aside the fact that, for food here now, we're talking general inflation. What do you expect to see in the coming months? Should we be saying that, yes, maybe the policies and reforms that the government has put in place are starting to yield dividends?
I would rather say, okay, maybe we're beginning to measure more appropriately. You see, the issue of changing the base year was very important, especially in an economy where inflation is high. If you now have to go and take your base year to 9 years ago, to 7 years ago, you're not being realistic about what you're measuring. It is better you move your base year closer to the year for which you are measuring, so that you are having more realistic prices to measure with. By the time we see March figure, most likely the year-on-year headline inflation would decrease again. It is possible. That is for the same reason that we're comparing this year with last year, and the basis for measuring last year is different from the basis for measuring this year. That is number one. Number two is the fact that in reality, in the month of March, there will be pressure on certain food prices, because we're beginning to move into the planting season. Now, that pressure will continue until maybe May or June, when we start to see maybe certain harvest coming into that season. But March, April, May are going to be very tough when it comes to food price. Of course, there could be intervention as well with some importation of food items anyway. But just leaving these things to what we produce in country, there will be pressure on the month-on-month inflation. But the year-on-year inflation will continue to improve.
Well, I don't know. The promise that we had, which we are talking about some relief when it comes to maybe importation and all that, the promise that we had that there will be some items that will be duty-free. I don't know whether that has been implemented, but as at the last time I checked, it was not implemented. So I don't know what you're building your confidence in that this might happen. Or maybe you just said it as for instance.
I read reports about rice. I did not verify it. There are reports that says the prices of various kind of rice actually has gone down from what it was in December. I don't know whether that is accounted for by more supply, which most likely be by importation anyway, or was it because the buying pressure in December, it was much higher and therefore prices was higher, and now that that season is over, there is no longer that strong buying pressure and the prices are falling. Well, I remember vividly reading in a couple of sources that prices of various type of rice did go down.
Yeah, but I did say that that duty relief or something.
The import duty.
It wasn't implemented.
I don't know.
Was it implemented?
I don't know if it was implemented.
Okay, so I don't know. So when we're expecting the markets to be flooded, the market will be flooded only by local production, which I'm not sure there's much incentive from the government. Maybe you have privileged information to the fact that maybe government is helping local production to make sure that our markets are flooded. For now, as for me, I do not know that. So what deliberate steps does the government need to take before we can get to that point where our local production will be made higher than what we are producing right now? I'm talking about food, even not even every
general inflation.
Yeah, food. If we deal with food, that is always my own slogan. If we deal with food, we will have dealt with a significant part of what is driving our inflation. Government have said a lot of things. How many of those things have been done is left to be seen. Government, in its analysis, which is real, had said, oh, we have this seasonality problem, and that in Nigeria we can actually do farming for 12 months. That is true. We are here in a country where we can farm for 12 months. We are importing food items from countries where they cannot farm where they can only farm for a few months. So the question is, so what has the government done in the direction of ensuring that we can actually farm for 12 months? The government said, oh, we can put 500,000 hectares, additional hectares of land into cultivation. The question will be, what has government done in the direction of that initiative since it was announced? We need to make inputs available to farmers and extension services, financing, and all of that. How well is that going? So what I will see at a distance is that we never lacked a proper analysis of how to solve our problem or what we need to do to improve the system. The analysis is there. Some of these statements that I made have been made close to 2 years ago. But in the space of doing, our doing lags way behind what we say. And if we're going to make any tremendous change, we need to rev up on the pace at which we do, and not just say or analyze our situation. The analysis are correct, they are perfect. I mean, you just mentioned the issue of import duty on food items. I don't know if it was implemented. Are farmers getting fertilizers, farm input, extension services as they're supposed to get it? I don't know. The issue of rural roads, connectivity from centers of production to centers of consumption, how well is that going on? I'm not so sure we're achieving much. Issues around wastage of food product, therefore needing to provide storages and all that, even electricity for part processing to extend the shelf life of agricultural product. I don't know how much of that we are able to do up till now. If those things don't improve significantly, our capacity to improve our food security will remain significantly curtailed. As we speak today, a lot of food produced are still wasted. There is still a huge seasonality with our production. In certain months, some prices will, crash dramatically. In 2 months after that, you can't even see the product in the market again. Those are issues of seasonality. So when you say you want to cultivate the land for 12 months, what specific action have we taken in that direction? We're not seeing one. Maybe the Ministry of Agri need to also come into that space and tell us what it has been doing so we can know.
Okay, so since we're still on food, right, what role do you think insecurity has to play in this? Because, I mean, we've seen farmers not being able to go into their farms. So we're looking at policies or even social interventions that can now lead to real economic relief for the citizens, because I mean, this is great on paper to see that there is a little decline in it. But if we're talking of food inflation, how to bring the numbers down, crush the prices, what role does insecurity have to play in this, and how can the government intervene?
Incidentally, in my observation, insecurity has milded. It has reduced dramatically from what it used to be. And you can take the example of Kaduna State. There was a season in this country where the attacks in Kaduna State was almost a daily affair in the newspaper. All the Kajurus of this world, southern Kaduna, even went to the extent of attacking the military bases in Kaduna at some point in this country. The question is, the reality is that all those things are not in the news any longer. It appears the security situations has indeed improved. Kaduna, for example, is a huge agricultural state. Even Benue, how the Agatu have been killed today, this has happened today. It appears, I'm not saying it has gone away. I'm saying from what it used to be, it appears to have gone from a 90% to a 20%. So the question is, how are we now getting people to return to all those places and farm their land? What confidence, what comfort do they now have if insecurity has indeed improved? But in my observation, it has improved dramatically.
Yeah, well, security improving is one thing, but returning to their ancestral homes is another. If you go to the Benue that you mentioned, the IDP camps are still functional because people have not returned yet. There are pockets of violence here and there, and people are being killed. But like you said, we will agree to the fact that security has improved. But until those people return to their homes and to their farms, no impact will be felt, except that maybe less people will be killed now. But if they cannot in fact, someone who went to farm, not in Benue, I can't remember the state now, and defended himself, there was that story that he defended himself, and after that, he's now facing
that's Sunday Jackson, but that was about a few years ago.
Facing execution because he defended himself and all that. So I don't know what the government is doing to reintegrate these people, not just reintegrate, but reestablish them where they used to be and return them to the farms and provide security enough for them to farm. Because until that is done, whether you're free in a country that you cannot feed yourself, that's no freedom at all. So I don't know what else the government needs to do.
Yeah, and even beyond inflation, what other indicators or what other things should we be looking at in 2025?
In 2025, we have to watch the space of possible energy cost increase. Energy costs from the side of electricity now, not the fuel. Okay. The way things are going, fuel might even further improve. The fuel cost might further improve if there are postulations that oil price in the international space might go down. So some believe it will even be significant to go all the way to $60 a barrel. Now that is bad for government revenue and and our FX supply. It is bad for it. But on the flip side, crude oil price is the largest cost component into the refined product. The implication is that the refined product will come cheaper if oil price becomes lower. But contrary to that possibility is the fact that electricity prices is being mooted as something that is possible to go up. If that happens, it will exert further pressure on inflation. So is a space to watch. Let's see how that plays out. Is it likely that government will be able to implement or allow that to go on this year? I mean, allow increase in electricity. Is it good for us? If it is happening, how does government intend to cushion the likely effect of what might be the inflationary pressure that will be exerted by such a measure? Those are some of the things we continue to look out for as the year rolls out.
All right, thank you so much, Gbolahan. It's been a pleasure. This is how much we can take here. We hope that we would continue to see this decline, but it's not just seeing it here as the headline. We'll start to have that economic relief as citizens, because cost of transportation is still expensive. Prices of food in the market, food items in the market are still quite expensive, and those are like the basic necessities for people. So if that can be addressed, of course, we'll start to feel that economic relief. So we hope that the government are putting policies in place, different social interventions to ensure this. We want to say thank you so much for coming. It's been a pleasure having you on our program this morning. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me.
All right. We're speaking with Gbolahan Olojede. He's an economic expert, and we've just been looking at the fact that inflation has decreased a little bit, and we hope that we would see that economic relief for everyone in Nigeria. We'll go on a short break now. When we return, we'll be discussing our second hot topic, so please stay with us.